Acquisition consideration. So usually when you hear the word acquisition, you're thinking like buying lots of stuff, new computers or whatever. But the acquisition we're talking about here is actually the collection piece. Generally, these are the areas where computer artifacts are made and or kept or used. So in the order of volatility, meaning the ones that last the longest at the bottom and the ones that are most volatile and can disappear in nanoseconds or maybe even faster depending on the CPU. The registers and the cache, these are inside the CPU or on the CPU itself. So the routing table, the ARP cache, the processing table, the kernel statistics, those are kept in a volatile area in memory. So the difference between that information and the memory in general, that the word memory there refers to the actual, like if you started Word on it and it's running in memory, that's the memory area, like user land. So memory is broken up into two basic areas. There's a kernel or the computer's specific area of memory that it uses to calculate things and to work things out and to save information. And then there's user land, and that's where you and I, whenever we start something, we place things into, or whenever we start up a computer in general, a lot of the stuff that runs in the background, the antivirus and all that stuff, goes into user land. So the volatility of the information there, the routing table, the ARP cache, etc., that's in kernel land. Or the CPU's memory area, and this memory that we're talking about there is actually the user land memory. And that's generally where you go to grab when we talk about volatile memory. That's the memory that you're pulling. The temporary file systems, well actually it's a temp files. Windows in general, and there's other applications that do the same thing. When they start up, they need certain values and certain things saved, and those are temporary files that they keep for themselves in a particular folder. When that application or the operating system, in this case, actually shuts down, a lot of those temp files get deleted because otherwise you just start getting these bloated folders full of stuff that you'll never need again. So that's the temporary files that we're talking about. And of course the disk, in this case we're talking about the hard disk with the platters, right? We could be talking about, although it is considered to be a non-volatile disk because it maintains the history, or it maintains the state. That could also be a solid state drive as well. Remote logging and monitoring, that stuff tends to be kept longer, right? Everything else is pretty much on, from disk up, is on the actual machine. Again, as long as you're not talking about either a file share or something like a NAS or a SAN. Everything from disk up is on the actual system. And so remote logging and the monitoring data is actually kept on purpose for longer than regular stuff that's supposed to be on the actual computer. The physical configuration and the network topology, that's going to be there for quite a while unless people are picking up boxes and moving them around. And then archival media or archival data is set up to be lasting the longest, right? This is the stuff that gets saved for 6 months, a year, and sometimes even longer. So when you're pulling it and you have limited time, you're trying to get to that memory first, the volatile data first. And if you can if you can prevent them from shutting it down, it won't get rid of those temporary files, and you can go pull those down, right? And then the drive itself, depending on what you're trying to get off of it. So there's a part of the drive and memory where if there's not enough memory, RAM, in the computer to hold whatever files you have open, it pushes that information that was used least recent, is the oldest information, gets pushed to the hard drive. This becomes a virtual disk, and it's called paging. So sometimes you don't only want to pull information from a hard drive that deals with the actual applications and the things you store on the disk, but you're trying to pull paging information also It's not as volatile because it actually is on a disk, and you could actually pull it if something were to happen and it were to die. And if you knew how to find it and carve it out, you could actually pull it. So that's part of this too, where although it is considered memory because it's a picture of RAM that they put on the disk because there's just not enough room in RAM. So you can also get paging information off of the hard drive as well. Okay. So likely value, right? Depending on your incident, different types of data provide more or less value. Also, if you know, even though it's how do I put this? Sometimes the volatile data isn't as important as non-volatile data. I'll just put it that way. It's relatively simple. If you have time, you can pull both. But if you're limited in time and you know it's on the hard drive is what you need, or I don't know why a log would be a speed issue, but if you need to pull something that is not as volatile sometimes, and you know that's exactly what you need, you might change your approach and actually go after something that's non-volatile first, so you can get that information. So, excuse me. And then understanding your incident can provide you more insight into some the more important data might be, right? So host compromise versus the insider threat. Right? Volatile data can show established connections, and your hard drive can provide malware for analysis for a host compromise. And then if you have an insider threat, you might be looking more at access logs versus going to grab the volatile data. And that's one of the cases where if you already know that you're looking for the insider threat, you'll go and grab access logs because that's the most important piece of data that you need to answer your question to progress with your investigation. Okay, and sometimes effort required will affect how and the order in which you go about trying to gather that information. If you have a short time frame, some of the information isn't as readily available for quite a few different reasons. If you don't control the information, if you need to get either permission or a court order, a warrant to get access to the device or the memory. Organization, if you have the technology to collect it, that may be an issue. And the people having the right skills, and then how much time is available, again, tends to affect the order in which you go grab things.